pajamas and sweats and workout clothes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, here we go. All right, it's setting up the meeting. So it's probably putting us on there now, but there is a little bit of a lag.
Okay.
So I'm going to make sure that I can see the comments. I wish I had my big screen. Okay, here we are. All right, so we're live. Hello, everybody. If you've been waiting for us, sorry if you technical difficulties.
Always.
I'm here with Kate Shelor, and always technical difficulties. Probably there will be some sort of lag here. So as we have this discussion, Kate, I'll look for comments. They might be a little bit later. We can answer questions at the end. All of that stuff is good. So if you guys are here, I see you tuning in. We have one viewer so far. So we'll just wait, and Kate and I will just chit chat for a second. Kate and I actually know each other from when we were kids.
We
when we were in middle school
bus or together, yeah. I think.
That's right. Yeah. I don't know if you remember the kids throwing my flute out the window, but that happened.
Kids are terrible.
Kids are so mean. Why are they so mean?
I don't know.
But anyway, actually, I think it was my recorder. But yeah, it's been amazing to reconnect with you as an adult and to see all of your amazing posts on Instagram and follow you on Facebook and see about your journey and who you are today as an adult who, you know, I didn't know you as well as I thought I did when we were younger, and you've had quite a transformation. I know you've followed me a little bit and seen a bit of my transformation too. So it's awesome to be able to share that together with you. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, so a few more people are joining us right now. Again, that's totally fine. And you know what? We'll just power through the lag and try to use the audio to guide us.
Okay.
Okay. All right, cool. And if it's a problem, I have another internet that I can switch to, so that we could always do that too. All right, so if you see us and you can hear us, please just let us know in the comments. Just say hi. Please welcome Kate Shelor. Just to tell you guys a little bit about me and how this is connected to her. One of the components of my program is positive connections with ourselves and our relationships. But really the connection with the self and who we are is the most important thing that you can do. Without taking responsibility for your health and for your own well-being, nothing else really matters. And so where do we start? And in my signature program, we start with the thoughts we think about ourselves before we even delve into food. And the first nutrition tip I give is about vegetables. So why I call this conversation Sex and Vegetables, about ourselves, sex and sexuality, not sex with vegetables, sex and vegetables. That's a whole other conversation for another time. You know, we have to be able to know why, what we want, and who we are as the motivation to be able to make sustainable change. So Kate, a couple people are saying hi. I have Tony Ann, I have Jessica, I have Nighty, I have Michelle. Everybody's saying hello to you and welcoming you in the group. So hi guys, so glad that you're here. Anyway, so this is where I thought about Kate, the whole thoughts process. She has shared openly on Instagram the missing connection to her whole body health when she buried resentment and shame on the inside, hid behind the outside body stuff, judgments of other people. And she started a journey to heal from the inside, namely her mind, through hypnosis and other thought processes that she's going to share with us today that I got to hear a lot about yesterday. I'm so moved and so grateful that you're here with us, Kate. You have so much knowledge and beauty to share with us as women, being empowered in our bodies, in our sex, sexuality, our minds, and this connection between the body and the way we feel about ourselves and all you have to offer in that. I'm so glad you're here. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And just because we were going to be talking about our bodies and our relationship to ourselves, I wore my Show Me Your Kitties t-shirt just for today.
It's so amazing. Show me your kitties. Yes.
Show me your kitties just for today. Yeah, I'm excited to jump in. You know, I'm sure, you are the guide today, and all the women in this group, you know them well and what they're kind of interested in looking for. So I'll let you kind of guide the way on where you want to jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess first, I really want to talk about this idea that you and I shared the other day about health priorities and how thoughts are really the priority that we need to look at and why. And maybe you could share a little bit about your personal journey, about how you recognize that it's actually the thoughts that you've thought about yourself, in your struggles, in realizing who it is that you could be and turning your weakness into your now superpower. I love that so much. So if you could share that story with us first, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a hypnotherapist, first and foremost, and that means I see clients one-on-one and over Zoom, and I focus, most of my business is focused on helping people with relationships, with their relationship with their own body, body confidence, healing from trauma, and sexuality, meaning how we relate to our bodies sexually, right? So that could be everything from, that could be something very personal, how you relate and how you feel about your own body, to sex drive, to really the nitty gritty stuff. I mean, some people come and they want help with, I feel like my sex drive is low, or lubrication, or orgasms. And sometimes it's about really just about how they feel about themselves and self-consciousness and stuff. So that's really the focus of my business. And then the way I got here was a winding road, and it's a very personal one, much like yours as well. So I was, through my entire adult life, well, I'll back up. So I experienced sexual assault when I was in college, like so many women that I know have experienced something like that. And I went through a really dark period, but then I came out of that after a couple of years, or I felt that I came out of that. And I was doing fine, right? I mean, I was going to school, going to work, and socializing and dating and all of those things. So outwardly, I was doing fine. But over the course of, I mean, gosh, I don't want to give, I feel now, let's see, how old am I? Let's see, that's many years. And that was, you know, in like 2000. So over the course of all the years after that, I, you know, 15, 16, 17 years, I just wasn't able to have an orgasm with another person. And I could on my own, alone, but I wasn't able to with anyone else. And this went on. And I went through stages with this. At first, I was like a problem solver, right? I'm going to read the articles, and I'm going to buy the toys, and I'm going to be a go-getter about this. And I was just trying all the, it's a technique. Maybe it's a technique, right? Maybe it's a position. Maybe it's a special toy. Maybe it's a, you know, a guy with a magic penis. Maybe it's a woman, you know, I tried it all. And so, but after years of building my hopes up about some sort of outward force helping me and being the golden ticket, and then feeling let down, that really started to wear on me. And then it went into the next phase. You know, relationships would end because every relationship, somebody would say, oh, well, you just haven't been with the right person. Right? And then they would like hold my beer, right? They were going to fix it.
Right.
And then they build up that expectation that they're the magic person. And then when they're not, inevitably it causes a big breakdown in the relationship. And I feel terrible and guilty, and I feel ashamed, and they feel angry and resentful and all of those things. So then the third stage was the fake it stage. That was when I realized that, you know, that no relationship could work unless I could, you know, enjoy. It wasn't that I couldn't enjoy sex, but it wasn't achieving orgasm. So I had to then fake it in order to keep the relationship going.
Oh, wow.
So that became the new thing for me, right? And that went on for years. And it worked to a point. You know, it worked in terms of the day-to-day relationship, that person is happy and they don't have questions and they're not disappointed. But inside I was feeling further and further and further away from myself and from who I was with. And at some point I started to feel so resentful towards my own body. Yeah. And towards what had happened to me and towards the situation I was in and all of these things. And, I've been married, I've been divorced, this is something that affected not just my sex life, it affected my entire life. Because what did it represent? It represented, how I related to other people, trust, anger at myself, projecting a bunch of frustrations out into the outside world, not really feeling complete, not feeling like a woman or whatever, right? It just affected everything and my self-esteem. And after my divorce, I had to kind of start over careers because we worked together and we were performers. So I really had to start over, and I was interested in hypnosis, not for myself. I really thought I was going to continue performing and I was going to do like hypnosis on stage. And so I took this course, and it was a very in-depth course. And I really just had my sights set on performing. I had no hypnotherapy, wasn't even an interest. I was like, nah. And then as I was taking this class, it wasn't the hypnosis itself that was life-changing, although that is a life-changing tool. It was understanding how the subconscious works, how it relates to your body. And it was the realization that I had control and I just had to take responsibility.
Yeah.
And I had spent how many years, basically putting the responsibility for my happiness on toys, on people, on the past, right? On relationships, on everything else, because I just, being a victim of something can be easier than taking responsibility. And that doesn't mean forgiveness, or that doesn't mean letting someone off the hook. It's just about deciding once and for all that you're the only person who can solve your problems and taking that responsibility on. And I was going home every night, like crying. I was a disaster because I was really looking at my life and seeing how it all pieced together and how it was all working together. And I realized really importantly that I wasn't broken. That my subconscious, these things happened. I learned emotional lessons and I was doing these things to myself to keep myself safe.
Yeah.
Right. And I really understood that on a deep level, taking this course, and the ins and outs and the mechanics of that is what we were learning. Right. And then the hypnosis was the tool, because we all can get to the point where we say, oh, my dad was mean to me and now I have daddy issues. A lot of us can understand that, but what do we do with that information? That's not enough to change, right? For most people. And so hypnosis was then the tool to actually change it. And it was like just a massive epiphany. And on the last day of class, the teacher brought up a student who had who was taking the class for just personal reasons, not for work, and had a very serious phobia of cats that was like, other people might laugh and think, well, cats, kitties. But for her, she would have panic attacks and she had to do home visits for her job. So this was something that would like absolutely sideline her and threaten her ability to keep a job. If she had to walk up to someone's house and they had a cat, she had a panic attack and couldn't go in, her boss isn't very happy with her, right? Mm-hmm. And this had been going on for years. So the teacher said, well, if you'd like to come up and sit down in front of the class, we can do a hypnotherapy session here. And she was very brave to come up in front of everyone. But we'd been building a pretty strong bond over the course of this very intensive class. And she got up there and she did this session, and the kind of hypnotherapy that he was teaching was, involves not just the hypnotist kind of relaxing you, but actually involves things like regression and the going back to the initial sensitizing event and creating resolution within yourself, and not from the hypnotist giving it to you, if that makes sense. She really went through it and really created that resolution, and she was crying and the whole class was crying. Mm-hmm. Everybody was crying. And it was like, I had this giant aha moment. This is what I want to do. And as I started applying it to myself and learning the tools for myself, I was able to then change how I felt about my body, forgive myself, let it go, let those things go, move forward. I was eventually able to orgasm with another person. All of these changes started to happen. I started to speak to my friends about it and other women. And I decided I was just going to be open about it. I was just going to talk about sex, even though nobody does. Yeah. And as I did, everybody started responding and everybody had something, right? Everybody was like, oh, well, my husband and I are struggling with this, or I also have problems with this, or I had sexual trauma, or whatever it is. Everybody had something. And I looked around the world of hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and I did a bunch of research, and I realized nobody is specializing in this. In fact, I discovered that many people won't even touch it in the world of hypnotherapy. They won't even, if you have a problem with sex, they won't even do a session with you. And so I was like, what, this whole thing is so emotional, how we relate to our bodies, our partner, our sex lives, our pasts.
Yeah.
And so our shame and guilt that's built in to it from culture and society and stuff. And so that's really it just set me on this path. And now that's all I do every day. And I've been so lucky. And actually now I would say, my business is half 50-50 men and women, which surprised me. I didn't think men would come to me and be open about the problems they were having, but I was wrong. And so it's been a really interesting journey, and there was a long answer, but I hope that.
No, it's so good. It's so good. Everything you're saying, I feel like is a metaphor for how we're taught to deal with problems in our life overall. And certainly, thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability with sexual trauma and with all of that and bringing it into becoming your superpower. And certainly I want to talk about how the way we think about ourselves, either like through trauma or through our bodies, affects body positivity and the way we show up in our relationships. But I also want to touch on how much you can almost replace adding on like Band-Aids to problems or taking on that problem solver idea. Like how many women go out, and as it relates to food or diet or weight loss, Googling the next thing. You talked about buying the toys because you think you're the problem, and maybe the right toy is going to solve the problem. Like we do, maybe the right diet's going to solve the problem. Maybe it's this food, maybe it's this shake, maybe it's this thing. These are all Band-Aids for the exterior in order to lose 10 pounds, or for you in order to have an orgasm, which is not the problem, is the healing deep down on the inside, right?
And so allowing yourself, right?
Yes.
Giving yourself permission to move forward, to be vulnerable, to have that orgasm, and it's just the same thing with, like you talked about with the food and the diets, right? We start to say, well, maybe it's the cookie diet. Maybe it's maybe it's the Shakeology. Maybe it's this magic thing. But the problem is there will always be a new thing if you're not working on what's on the inside. Yeah. And that will be a never ending cycle. And then what happens is you feel frustrated with yourself when you fail. I'm putting that in quotation marks because that's how you feel, but it's not the truth. It's set up that way for you, all these yo-yo ideas, right? And you will fail, and then you will validate to yourself that you're a failure. See?
Yeah.
And then it eats away at the very thing you need to cultivate, the actual key, right? Which is how you relate to yourself when you look inward, and then everything else falls into place. Everything else becomes much easier.
Yeah, I'm getting a connection unstable for 1 second. Let me just make sure I'm on. Can you see me okay?
I can. You went a little blurry,
crazy,
but I could.
Okay.
But you're still here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and Kate, you also shared with me a little bit about how focusing on the exterior affected you, and even when you had lost weight but hadn't done the work on the inside, you were still suffering. Can you paint that picture for us real quick? Because it's not like when I lose 40 pounds, then I'll have the life of my dreams. And you shared with me kind of that it was the unhappiest point in your life when you were 40 pounds smaller than you are now, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I was living in LA, and LA is a very outward focused city. And I worked in the entertainment industry, and I was doing acting and other things and production. And I was at a point where I was highly stressed, and I had some financial trouble, and I was working 2 jobs. I was working a full-time day job and a night job that would go till 1 or 2 in the morning. And I was just exhausted. And I'll tell you, it's even worse than what I told you, which was I was so emotionally at, my ends were frayed so much. I was trying to keep it all together. And a friend of mine said, I know what you need, right? What you should do is there's this doctor, but what he really does is he prescribes Adderall. He prescribes Adderall for everyone. And it's what everyone does to stay skinny, and you'll get everything done because you're so tired and you're working hard. Yep. And that's what you should go do. You just go tell him that you have trouble focusing, and he'll prescribe it. And I went to this very strange office and went to this very strange doctor, and the whole thing felt wrong and off, but he just prescribed away. And I picked it up, and then I took Adderall, and I became, of course, highly focused, but it brought out also some really bad parts of my personality, obsessing over flaws, like literally physical flaws. And I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, whatever. But man, I lost weight. I lost so much weight because I wasn't hungry, and I was working all the time, and it was keeping my energy up. However, this thing started to happen because I was on this Adderall, which was the miracle diet. And it was, oh my God, as much as I wanted to be like this skinny, because everybody wants to be that like little manic pixie dream girl thing from the movies. And I was becoming that very quickly, but I was also becoming like unhappier and unhappier and unhappier as I was doing it. Stress, I knew I wasn't treating my body well. I wasn't treating myself well. My mind it wasn't good for my mind. But I would walk around and I would like see people. I remember being at this bar with a friend after work, and I ran into some old work colleagues. I used to work at this production office with all guys, and they were all out from that office, and it was a bunch of them. And they were like, oh my God, Katie, wow, you look amazing, right? And they were just like, and I remember actually feeling angry inside, because it was like the skinnier I got, even though I was unhealthy and unhappy, and I wasn't doing it in a good way or for good reasons, the more compliments I got.
Yeah.
And it made me I really realized at some point, like how you can chase that validation and completely lose yourself. And I actually just I took myself off at cold turkey. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And guess what? I gained weight back, but I was also way too skinny. But regardless, people in the business thought I looked amazing. Guys were hitting on me more than they ever have. And people were telling me how awesome I looked, as if I didn't before or something. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, oh, wow, now you're so skinny and now everybody thinks you're hot. And it really made me realize how empty it is to continue to chase that. And I just, in a way, it wasn't good for me, but the end result, the realization was good for me at the end, of just feeling kind of like, well, that's something I can never win. That's a game. Chasing that validation is a losing game, and I don't want it, and I don't need it. And I will lose if I keep that up. And that might sound like an extreme example, but I think that most of us do it in some way or another, whether it's through Instagram, watching people on Instagram look perfect or whatever. And then we look at ourselves and we feel like we want to chase that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm so glad that you're sharing this story. It's so important, because so many people, like you said, chase that, like, I want to look good at the next event. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to do all of these things. But one of the things that I encourage people to think about, and you brought yourself there, is that at the end, when someone says you look amazing, do you want to say, oh yeah, I take a bunch of Adderall and I don't eat? Or do you want to say, and I've been working really hard to feel amazing inside of my body, and to be able to emanate that and to be able to redirect people's attention from the exterior, from the outside into the work that you're putting in. And the reason there's guilt and shame and resentment and you felt like shit is because it was a pill. It was a magic pill. Like
there was no happiness, and I wasn't powerful. I wasn't strong. I wasn't growing. You know, I think losing weight when you want to lose weight can be wonderful. Working out and growing strong is wonderful when you feel that you're doing it to serve you. When you are truly honoring and serving yourself, that's awesome. And when people validate that, that's a wonderful cherry, but you're not doing it for that validation. You're doing it to honor and serve yourself. You're doing it to feel that on the inside. And then when someone goes, you look great, you're like, thanks. And inside you're like, I know, because I worked for it and I feel good and I'm doing the right things. But this was the opposite. This was the opposite. And we all fall into that. If this, then that, or like, once I get this thing, then I'll be happy. Right? Once I get this job, this car, this outfit, this 10 pounds, whatever it is, then I'll be happy. And we can just, that's something you can never, because I guarantee when you get that thing, you think there's a new benchmark. There's once you get the thing, let's say you lose the 10 pounds and then because it's not coming from that place inside, then you're not happy with that 10, well, 5 more. Right. Or I also, now my butt's too flat, or I need muscles, and then I'll be happy. Right. You can that's a never ending race.
Yeah. That brings me to the discussion of body positivity and the thoughts that we think about ourselves. And something that you introduced to me was this triad of how the body, the mind, and the emotions work in order to kind of put you into a cycle of self-sabotage over and over again, and for us to be body positive. And I loved the penis metaphor, the penis story that you gave about this, that really made it visually possible to understand what you were talking about. So I'd love for you to use that context again. In order to be body positive, we have to recognize what happens with our body, our mind, and the emotional connection. So can you demonstrate that for us right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start by saying a couple of things just to give you guys a foundation in how the subconscious works. So, our subconscious makes associations, and that's how it works. So a small child walks up to a hot stove and puts their hand on the hot stove and burns their hand. They don't have to reach out and touch the fire in the fireplace now. Their subconscious says that's heat related. That hurts. Okay. So it is made to help us survive. And that is what it does. It makes constant associations all the time. Now you can already imagine, I think, all the ways you've made associations in your life. Some good and some bad associations, or some that serve you and some that don't serve you. Right. And so that's how that subconscious works. Your subconscious, I tell people a lot, is there to help you survive, but not necessarily to thrive. And understanding that gives you some power to kind of get behind the wheel, understand what's happening, step outside of yourself, see what's happening and say, well, is this really serving me? And then hypnosis is the way that I teach people for themselves to interrupt that or rewrite that pattern. So one of the things that we talked about was this mind, body, emotion triangle, which I have a little fancy diagram for you guys to show you. But before I forget, I also want to say one more thing about the thoughts. This is all related, which is, you can imagine inside your mind that there are 2 pots. And in each of these pots is fertile soil that can grow anything planted there. And in one pot are the seeds of, the most beautiful flowers in the world. And in the other pot are the seeds for weeds. Well, which will grow? And the answer is the one you feed, the one you nourish. And so the way you nourish those pots of soil is through your thoughts. And those thoughts trigger emotions, right? They trigger emotions. So, and those encourage those things to grow. And so you have an immense amount of power on what you give attention to, is the point I'm trying to make. Where your attention goes, the mind and body follow. So when you give attention to your worst thoughts, you are encouraging them to grow. It's not because they are actually need to be in abundance, or they're true, or the things you're thinking are true, but it's what you've given power to. And then those weeds will, you might grow flowers too, but the weeds are overgrown. And so you really have to understand that you do put, you give power to either one of those pots by where you put your thoughts. And that brings me to this, which is this very high tech here. I have it on this paper. This is the mind, body, emotion triangle. It really doesn't matter where you put mind, body, or emotion. It can go on any of the three prongs. Mm-hmm. The point is you can imagine this is your subconscious, and this is what happens when your thought process starts going, okay? And this can work to benefit you, or it can work against you. And I think most of us can understand, a negative thought process like the one I'm about to give you an example. So let's say you're a runner, and I think there are probably many people that have been running in your group. Mm-hmm. So if you are a runner, and let's say you are running, and we'll come in at the body, could anywhere, you can be triggered anywhere on this triangle. So you come in at the body, and let's say your legs start burning, and you're feeling that, heaviness in your legs. And so that might trigger, your thoughts, right? Which is like, I didn't train enough, which triggers an emotion. I don't think I'm going to make it. I'm a failure, right? I never do anything right. And then what happens to your body? It slows down, mm-hmm. right? You start to feel worse. You start to feel heavier. You start to feel slower. And that triggers your thoughts, those negative thoughts, which triggers those emotions, because they get validated. They go, see, I'm not going to make it, right? And then all of a sudden the train is just chugging around the station.
Yep.
And that can get out of hand really fast.
Yeah.
But it's actually you validating those things now and making them true is my point. Now, you might not have trained enough. Okay. And that can be a very logical thought, but let me put it to you this way. Let's say you have trained enough. You could have trained wonderfully and been very dedicated. But if you start to fill your mind, fill that pot with the negative thoughts about yourself and why you're doing it, I guarantee you will hurt your efforts. We all can understand that, right? If you're running a race, even if you've trained and you're well trained, if your thoughts and then your emotions are, negative and accessible and self-defeating, it is going to affect your performance. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, 100%. Right.
So this is a very real thing, and it affects you. That emotion has a direct connection to your body. And the same thing, it can happen in a positive way as well. You can be, you can be running and you could be thinking good thoughts and powerful thoughts and have good emotions about yourself. And then you feel light and you feel airy and you're like, man, I feel good. And boom, boom, boom. The same process can happen. Right. And so the way I also explained when I'm talking to people about sex is, I told you I have a lot of male clients, and a lot of men struggle with erectile dysfunction. It is like a $400 billion industry for pills for it in this country. And it's just a huge thing. Over the course of a man's life, most men will experience it at some point or another. And so I got a lot of men that ask for hypnosis for that. And one of the things that I talk to them about is this. And this is true whether we're talking about running, orgasms, studying habits, getting out of bed in the morning, right? This is all the same. This is just how your mind works, no matter how you apply it. So let's say, you've got a guy and he's got a penis and he is going to have sex. And let's say he starts off with his mind this time. Okay. Let's say he triggers in his mind. I hope it doesn't happen again. I hope it doesn't happen tonight. Right. And then that triggers an emotion, let's say, which is like, I don't want to fail. I don't want to, I'm not enough of a man. Or maybe it triggers a body response. Maybe his mind thinks, I hope it doesn't happen again. And then his body, is not super hard. And then what does that happen? His emotion, I can't please her. I'm not enough of a man. She's going to leave me. And then what does that trigger to his body again? Right. And that's very natural. And so I ask men a lot, if you are thinking these thoughts and feeling these things, what do you expect your body to do? Mm-hmm. If you have a huge erection while thinking those thoughts and feeling those feelings, then you should be in porn. You are like, Ron Jeremy's hero, because you are incredible. And, because that's not how it works. You are not broken. You're working exactly as you should work. Right. That is that power of how we think, positively or negatively. As much as people kind of want to go, yeah, positive thinking. It is incredibly powerful. We all understand the power of negative thinking. But if the power of negative thinking is true, so is the power of positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Like, I am not broken. What a powerful thing to say in the first place.
Yeah, you're working just
loving
right.
and accepting ourselves as we are. Yeah, I'm working just right. My body is just right the way that it is. Going back to the body positivity piece where, what it feels like when you want to shut the lights off in the bedroom because you feel shameful about your body, or the first time that you're sleeping with someone, or, putting yourself out there, even though you feel a certain way. So how do we talk to ourselves without going to a hypnotist? How do we choose those thoughts? What's the first step in choosing the thoughts to be able to feel empowered in our bodies, to buy the sexy shirt, to get into bed with somebody, to feel so good about ourselves that we show up with that kind of positivity?
Well, one of the ways that you rewrite your subconscious mind, and so therefore rewrite, those thought patterns, those associations, those emotions, is repetition. Repetition rewrites the subconscious mind. So, this is as simple as, you say, how can you do this without going to a hypnotist? The first thing is that it's a skill, so you can learn it and get better at it. The second thing is that you are being hypnotized all the time. Mm-hmm. Hypnosis is, yes, I can do hypnosis to you or with you. I don't do it to you. I do it with you. I'm not a puppet master. I'm bringing something out within you, but you are also your own hypnotist. Yeah. The people you surround yourself by are hypnotizing you, because all it is, are they influencing you on an emotional level? Right. That is all it is, right? Are they influencing you on a subconscious level? Are your thoughts influencing your emotions? The person who hears, you hear your own thoughts more than anyone else in the world, right? And so you have a responsibility to start to take a moment to audit that self-talk, because that first and foremost is the most influential element of your life. What you're constantly allowing yourself to say over and over and over again. So I tell people to imagine that their inner mind and all their thoughts that they think all day, they could pull them out and put them beside them and make them a person. Yeah. So this could be a person. And now this is your new friend who follows you around 24 hours a day and says those things out loud to you. So ask yourself, are you okay? Would you be okay with this friend in your life? Would you be okay with a person who walked around saying those things to you all the time? Would you be okay with that person saying those things to your child? The answer might be yes. It might be, that's a pretty awesome person. She's not perfect, but she's pretty great. She treats me well, and that's amazing. That's where, but if the answer is, I'd want a restraining order, that's a totally toxic person. If they were my friend, I would never have that person in my friend group, much less telling my child those things. Yeah. You're not good enough. You don't look good in that. You should feel ashamed. If that is the case, if you would not want that person in your life, then you should not allow that person to exist in your mind. That sounds easier said than done. The answer isn't magic. The answer is repetition, is practice. You know, when you start to pay attention to what you say, you have a choice in what you allow. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Like it can be as silly as a mantra.
Yep.
Right? Waking up. I don't know if you guys have seen that video, that little girl that stands on the counter and she's like 3 and she's like, I'm good enough. I love life. I love myself. But like she's onto something, right? It can be as simple as repeating some phrases to yourself, or when you hear the thing, starting to become self-aware. A lot of us allow this negativity to just exist unchecked. But when you start to see it, step outside and realize you have a responsibility, you have the power to change it. And when you take that responsibility on, then you can start to become self-aware. What am I saying to myself? Okay, stop. And you literally have to reframe. Reframing is really important. When you hear yourself say, I look fat in that, it's like you stop yourself and you say, nope, I'm not going to let myself say that. Okay. I am good enough the way I am, right? This is my body. I appreciate my body. It can, you know, and I love myself. And you might not believe it at first. But repetition rewrites that subconscious mind. And over time, those new ideas become more comfortable, more familiar, and those negative thoughts become less powerful, less prevalent. But also you are influenced subconsciously by your friend group, by your partner. So really you have to pay attention to who you're surrounding yourself by. That's why I think like groups like who we're talking to today that you've cultivated, that's so important. Because that influences you. We all know that if you surround yourself by negative, toxic people, it affects us, right?
Yep.
So that is a way of you can hypnotize yourself all the time. We are hypnotized. We are subconsciously influenced by magazines, by social media, right? By the voices we allow ourselves in our head, by our friend group. So you really doing an audit of all that and then taking that responsibility and starting to reframe and force you to come up with your mantra, come up with your statements you say. When you hear that, hear an alarm bell as well. Oh, one of those nasty thoughts came up.
Yep.
That's when you know that you don't hate yourself for those thoughts. It is an alarm bell. It alerts you that this is one of your trigger points. This is one of your moments, and say your mantra. And over time, you will rewrite those things. You will rewrite those ideas.
Yeah, I love that so much. In my 12-week program, as I said before, the first thing is our thoughts and rewriting our thoughts. And there's a list of 12 mantras that I find are just the most powerful for women, particularly who have like body image or self-esteem or, overeating, binging type issues, but how we can apply them to all places of our life, and being able to anticipate by journaling even the night before. Here's the thing I want to do. Here's the negative thoughts I have about that thing about myself that I want to do that I feel like I can't do. And here's the way I'm rewriting it by thinking about, powerful words like I choose, or I'm able to, or I can, or I welcome, right? So it's like, I'm not going to be stressed out. Well, you know what if I welcome stress as necessary as necessary, and I can move through it, right? There's all these ways and words that we talk to ourselves. And I love this idea of repetition because it is practice. And Kate, you and I talked about like this idea of like self-actualization, where it's like, that's not really a thing. Self-actualization is realizing, or self-realization is realizing that it's a process and that we're always self-talking to ourselves. And for you, I'm sure about your body, your sexual body, your career, like where you are in your life. It's not like all of a sudden it's done. It's a process and a journey that continues. That's where the joy is understanding that the work doesn't feel as hard because you've repeated it so much, but it's always repeating, right?
Always. Right. There is no, it's the same thinking of once I do this, then I'll be happy. Once you can accept that never works ever, then all of a sudden, there's a freedom. We talk about doing the work. I wish there was a better term than that, because it is work, but work has like kind of a negative connotation to it. But for lack of a better word, the work is is a beautiful thing. It's a freedom, right? Because you realize that you are a constantly evolving person and you can enjoy that process. It's not always easy, and sometimes it is easy. Sometimes it's joyful and sometimes it's a trudge, but there is no magic place you're going to get to where you're like, now I feel perfect about my body. I have nothing I feel self-conscious about. I wake up every day. I'm powerful. I'm perfect. Everyone loves me and I love myself. Like you don't ascend to the heavens, right? And like, that's it. You've achieved it. I guarantee you could go to Tony Robbins and you could ask Tony Robbins if he ever questions himself, feels less than 100% secure, worries. Does he ever deal with things in the wrong way? Yeah, I guarantee he does. If he doesn't, if he says he's not, he's lying, because 100% he does. No matter, who you look up to, your mentors are all also always doing the same work you're doing. Yeah. And so I am also always doing that work. I put a lot of pretty suggestive photos out on Instagram, and that's a choice I've made. And yeah, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I should have put that out there. And I struggle with questioning whether that is old ideas about what's right and wrong, or if that's a legitimate concern that reflects who I am.
Right. Yep.
No one can answer that for me, but I mean, I'm always wondering that, right? Yeah. But I enjoy that work. I enjoy the process. What I try not to do, and what I've gotten better at, is, shaming myself on either answer. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. My partner is a hypnotherapist and he's a hypnotist. I go to him all the time to have him help me. And yes, I can do self-hypnosis and stuff, but sometimes I go to him because, I'm constantly applying this to myself. And so there is no destination. There's no destination. I think there's this line in the movie Annie Hall, and he's talking about relationships, but I think it applies to anything, relationship with yourself, and he says, a relationship is like a shark. It has to keep moving forward or else it dies. And then he says, what we have here is a dead shark. But the point is, we are the same way. There is no destination. We just always have to be moving. We're moving somewhere. We're thinking, we're analyzing, we're growing, we're trying to change, we're reflecting. And that's it. That's the most destination I can give you.
Yeah. That's amazing. Kate, thank you so much. I want to open up for some questions, and I'll go ahead and check the comments here in Facebook, which again, there's a little bit of a lag. So I'm going to give them a little time to be able to put any questions in. And in the meantime, just let you know, like, how can people get in touch with you? Kate, what's your IG handle? Are you present on Facebook? How can we get to know you and the work you do and get in touch with you for any more questions if we don't get to them tonight? Yeah.
I am most active on Instagram, which is at Kate Shelor, KateShelor, at Kate Shelor. You can go to my website, kateshelor.com. I am also on Facebook, and it's Kate Shelor Hypnosis, I think. Gosh, I should know that. And Kate Shelor Hypnotist. And so you can kind of find me in any of those. I answer emails and DMs, and I have an online booking system. I also do consultations that are free. So I want to work with people who want to work with me, that we're the right fit. I am not out there to try to just get people in, like, you know what I mean? Because I want to help you on this to be a good relationship. So I am not a pushy person at all. If people have a consultation with me, I never ask them if they're going to book with me. So just know ahead of time, it's not my style. You can get off and then you can decide if you're going to book, but you can ask questions about, tell me about your situation and kind of see, what if you want to get some thoughts, and we can talk about the process. So you can do that through my website or through Instagram. There's links for consultations and everything on there.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. Thank you so much for sharing all your info. And I hope that some people take advantage of that consultation. That's really great. Yeah, I think it's really important, you know, for coaches in general. Like, you don't just work with someone just to work with someone, but you work with them because it's a right fit and because they're ready.
Yes.
People have to be ready. You have to be ready for transformation. You have to be ready to work with me to transform, work in action. You it sounds like you have the same standard range. It's otherwise it's you know, it's kind of a dead end street for somebody.
Well, and you know, everybody has, it's the same thing. You know, when I went through that time period where I was looking for the partner to change things, the toy to change things,
yep,
you know, the position to change things, I probably, if I had thought about it, would have tried to go get some coach or hypnotist to change things for me.
Yeah.
Hey, can you do some magic on me and just fix it for me? Right. You know, and to change things.
Oops, sorry, I was looking for comments on here.
Okay, so it takes time to, you've really got to be ready to say, you know, I want to work on the inside. You don't have to have any answers. You just have to be ready, and we can do the rest of the work here, just like for you. But you know, but that's so important to really kind of be in that place. And I've also told people too, like, you know, given my honest opinion about whether or not, you know, I said, I don't think we're, you know, you're in the right position right now. I'd love you to think about your reasons. And if you still want to talk. So again, I'm not going to book anybody unless it's right for both of us.
Yeah. Awesome. Good. Well, I don't see any questions popping up right the moment, but I have a couple of just fun questions to ask you, if you wouldn't mind answering. Do you have any tip? Well, actually, why don't you tell us, what do you do for fun with your husband? And don't you guys have 6 girls together? Don't you have like 3 and 3? How many kids do you have?
I have 1.
5.
He has 4. So we have 5 girls ranging from 7 to 16. And
oh my God.
It's a lot of estrogen. It's a lot of girl energy all the time. And we have 2 dogs. So it's busy. And all the kids are in school at home. So it is, there's a lot going on. I don't even know what we do for fun anymore. I mean, we're in Las Vegas, which is very shut down for the pandemic. So right now it's just movies and whatever. When it comes to sex, I know a lot of people struggle because if you're at home and you've got kids and they say they're homeschooled or they're temporarily homeschooled, it's hard. So I tell people, and I say this whether or not you have kids at home all the time, which is schedule sex.
Right.
You might think that's not sexy, but I think it's great because I think it's very sexy. A lot of people struggle with being in the mood, right? Or having their mind, they got to have their mind wrapped around the idea of getting sexy, right? I'm, for one, like, my partner can just snap his fingers and he can go from, like, you know, he could clean dog poop and then turn around and be ready to have sex. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's it. I am not the same. I have to have, you know, when I put my mom hat on, I don't always feel sexy. And when I'm like putting my, you know, I just work hat on, I need a transition for me. And understanding how you work is a good thing because you can both understand it and help each other out instead of fighting against it, right? So one thing we've learned is scheduling sex works really well because then we can say, hey, you know, the kids are away, or we have this hour, or we have a shower we can take together. Do you want to do something during that shower time? Can we have some sexy time? Yes. And that way, throughout the day or however long I have to work up, I get my mind wrapped around it. So now when I'm doing mom stuff, I'm thinking in the back of my head about what I'm going to run and put on, or it lets me get in the mood. And so I think scheduling sex is like one of the best things you can do in a relationship, especially now when a lot of people are struggling for free time.
Thank you so much for
I have
saying
sex
that.
for fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. We can all use more of that. So yeah, I think that there's definitely, I mean, most women I work with are parents, and something happens, you know, when you have kids and you adopt the mom mindset. And you probably know about of the the partner sees them as sees the woman as like sacred, and like has a hard time with wanting to initiate sex with them because they're like the bearer of the children, and there's so much wrapped around parenthood, and then the lack of sex that people have. And so scheduling sex is one tip. And then what about like the mental stuff that you go through, like the I'm too tired, or the I don't feel like it, or I'm just not attracted anymore. I mean, at what point, honestly, Kate, is there a difference between this is a huge question.
Yeah.
This isn't working out anymore for me. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not attracted anymore. And I'm just not putting in the effort. What is the difference between those two things?
It's an awesome question. There isn't an easy answer to that. I think that, relationship to relationship, most of us deep down inside have some idea whether or not this lack of feeling or lack of drive or interest is internal or external to the other person. Do you resent that person? And sometimes it's mixed up. Sometimes it's both. It can be very hard to draw a hard line between the two, right? I mean, for many of us, if your partner, if you feel like you're doing things around the house and they don't help out, that can affect your drive because you feel resentful and you don't feel respected or whatever. And one thing I try to tell people, which is, when you're having the same arguments, for example, over and over and over again about petty things, small things, that is like, let's say you're arguing about laundry on the floor, right? Not putting your laundry in the basket or whatever, and your partner's not doing it. You guys are having the same arguments over and over. That is a signal. You can use that to step back and take a moment to say, well, ask yourself, I like to ask, ask at least 3 whys. Why am I mad? Well, I'm mad because I do all this work and it gives me extra work. Okay. So it really pisses me off. Well, why does it piss me off? Well, because I feel like he doesn't respect me. It doesn't respect my time. Why does that upset me? Because I feel like we're really unbalanced in our relationship. Okay. So now we know we're not fighting about laundry. We can stop fighting about laundry because it's not about laundry. And it's an opportunity. It's hard work, but it is so important to do that work. Ask yourself the whys. You can use the whys in a positive way too. You can use the whys. One thing I talk about when people talk about like fantasies, right? People get very ashamed and confused about their fantasies and sharing them and being afraid. And, fantasies themselves are irrelevant. They don't really matter. I mean, the content of the fantasy necessarily. In most situations, it doesn't really matter what you're fantasizing about. There's some really good information there if you can have that conversation, which is like, I'm just going to be, dirty here. Let's say I fantasize about a gangbang. Okay, great. So you might be like, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing or whatever. I can't share that, whatever, but you can really get some great information out of that. It's like, okay, well, why are you interested? Why do you like watching a gangbang? Oh, well, I guess maybe I like thinking about feeling like I feel like out of control. Like I feel like I would just surrender, or if it makes me feel like would make me feel like a woman, or I like thinking about being overpowered. Well, why? Well, because I think I'm in charge all the time, or because I always initiate sex and it would be so you can really get information from these conversations. I suggest to everybody that if your partner, I always say never yuck anybody's yum. Okay. If you want to be able to share, make sure your partner can also share with you. If partner says, sometimes I close my eyes and I think about dressing you up as a pretty pony and, riding you around and you say nay. Okay. Please don't go, oh my God, what? You're so weird. Please go, oh, okay. Why do you think that is? What do you like about that? Because you can get to the information there that can draw you closer when you, well, actually, because I think this is super cute and I really like this. And okay, like now you can, and maybe you don't have to dress up like a pony, but by understanding the why, you can incorporate those elements. You can understand your partner and they can share with you. So, asking, my partner always says, and that's interesting. Why? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is probably like the number one question we ask, but it is a really good way to sort of get underneath the surface and to get to the information. Same thing when you're arguing. The last thing I'll say is that when you're having conversations that are intimate or emotional, especially sex conversations, please have them outside of the bedroom. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The bed is like it's a tricky place, right? When you ask someone, well, did you like that? Do you like when I do that? Do you want to do more of that? In bed, there's the pressure of either having to follow through in that moment or possibly let them down, or possibly just a huge amount of pressure in that moment. Wait till things are pleasant and a good mood. Maybe you're taking a walk through the neighborhood after dinner and you're holding hands. Have those conversations when the mood is light and you're outside of the bedroom space. Allow that bedroom space to not be filled with those conversations.
Yeah.
Right. And take that out of that bedroom and have it in a less stressful and a more positive place. So you guys can go, really? Why? Why do you think that is? Ask 3 or 4 whys, not why, tone is important, but, and so, when it comes to your original question, there isn't one answer, but I think that you need to ask yourself the whys. Why does this make me mad? Why does that upset me? Why is that? What does that really mean? And then you can start to self-assess. There's a great book. I have no affiliation to this book. I just think it's one of the best books out there for women. And it's called Come As You Are.
Oh yeah.
It's so good. It's filled with like worksheets and it helps you assess and reflect. You could read it alone or with a partner. I can't say enough good things about it. And she's got a PhD. And it's a fantastic book. So anybody who's interested in kind of dealing in the relationship realm or whatever, that book's awesome.
That's a beautiful book. I love that one too.
Yeah.
And I know how important it is, to people, just going kind of like bringing it full circle here in the beginning when we talked about, burying resentment and not dealing with the core and all of that, and thinking about relationships and the importance of connections and relationships in our life overall, and the tendency for, women are like, oh God, I don't know why I'm eating in front of the TV at night, or I don't know why, when the kids come home and I'm making dinner, I'm like overeating and I'm doing all of these behavioral things. Well, like where are you action? Where is the building up that's leading you? I think that being able to connect in your relationship is so important. And Kate, those tips are so valuable, particularly for the women that I work with, to be able to connect in their intimate lives and their intimate relationships, and all of the thought work that you do on the connection to ourselves, which is the number one most important thing. So I have chills after this hour of talking to you. So much good, valuable stuff. And I know that they appreciate it too. And certainly we'll get in touch with you with questions. And if any other questions pop up here in the Facebook group, I will ask you personally and see if I can get some answers from you.
Wonderful. That's amazing. It's been so good to be here. Thanks for having me. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate being here so much.
I appreciate you so much too, and can't wait to hear more from you soon.
Okay, likewise.
All right, thanks. Okay.
Bye, and bye everybody.
Bye, guys.